meeting to order. I should please stand. Today I'm going to ask Councilwoman McMahon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask Councilman Esposito to lead us in prayer. Councilman.
Let us pray. Go before us, O Lord, we beseech thee, in all our doings with thy gracious inspiration. Suffer us not to disturb the order of justice. Let not ignorance drawn to the devious path nor partiality sway our minds. Neither let respect of riches of persons pervert our judgment, inasmuch as we are gathered together in thy name, so may we in all things hold fast to justice, tempered by pity, that so in this life our judgment may be in no way at variance with thee, and the life to come may be attained to an everlasting reward for deeds well done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman. And will the clerk please call the roll this time?
McMahon. Present. Egersheth. Present. Johnson. Trombetta.
Present.
Caltrino. Perkins.
Present.
Visconti.
Present.
Shinice. Esposito. Sadi. Cavo. Natale. Diggs. Dyschel. Mercanti. Curran. Knapp. Levy. Riley. Seabury. Stanley.
There being 19 present and 2 absent, let the record reflect that Councilman Calendrino is injured and is still working on his back. Councilman Dyschel is out ill tonight. So there being 19 present and 2 absent. This time, it represents the public speaking portion of our meetings. The first 30 minutes of each council meeting reserved for public comment. You must address the council about an item that is specifically on the agenda tonight, and you must be a resident and or taxpayer of the city of Danbury to address the council. With that, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council this evening? Any member of the public that wishes to address the council this evening? Enter your name and address for the record, please.
Greg Williams, 104 Franklin Street here in Danbury. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council people. How are you? And Happy New Year to you all. I just wanted to speak briefly on the agenda in relationship to the consent. Item number 12, which is 2008 Charter Revision Draft Report. I first want to commend the Charter Revision Committee for ferreting through a lot of information as far as how the city is governed and some changes that actually need to be are done. One of the concerns that I've had in relationship to borrowing, and that's in section, hang on a second, sorry. Basically, in the issue as far as borrowing, it was nice to see that there was a cap that was put on the borrowing from anywhere from $2.5 million to $5 million. I still think from a public perspective or a citizen's perspective, it's way too much money for any administration to control during any term. Speaking from the perspective that the term will be extended, or hopefully, in a sense, the terms will be extended to 4 years. I think from that perspective, 10 to 20 million per term is a lot of money and a lot of power for one administration to cover for issues in relationship. So council, I implore you all to please consider that and readjust the cap based on that. My other issues in relationship to section 8.3 regarding conflict of interest. Had been to a couple of Charter Revision Committee meetings, and the last one before the draft was presented to you all in the council, there was an issue in relation if, God forbid, something would happen to the mayor and that the council president would step in at that meeting. I know the council president at that point, based on his employment with the city, had some pause, or had discussed in the past with pause, if he ever had to take the position of running for the mayor. And I think from a community perspective, I think it's a gross conflict of interest having an employee being in that position. I kind of keep asking the question, how do you say no to your boss when you're already on the council in that perspective? So once again, I hope the council really looks at that, and I implore that the council has a criteria or an eligibility that city employees in any fashion should not serve on the council, because I'm sure in some aspects, whether it's budgetary times or specifically in the times of executive session that you all regularly do, how does that person judge, or how does he represent us in the community when he works for the city? So based on that, I just hope that you all really look at that and examine that and hopefully change the charter for years to come and not really focus on this administration, but the administrations in future that could possibly lead down the way of maybe misappropriations or gross conflict of interest that would be more to the public's like. Thank you very much for your time, and Happy New Year to you all both.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I just want to comment, the employees serving in elected positions are state law, and if you wish to change that, unfortunately, no changes to the charter can change that. You have to go to the legislature and ask them to change current state statutes. So if you do have that concern, I'd ask that you bring it up to our state senator, who's sitting here tomorrow in our office, as well as your state representative to pass it on.
I appreciate that, Mayor, and congratulations to you, Mike.
Any other member of the public wish to address the council this evening? Seeing no other members wish to address the council this evening, we'll move on to the regularly scheduled meeting. Some of the announcements that I have that are listed here in front of you for the events of January 2009. On January 26th, it is Greg and Barbara Seabury's wedding anniversary. Congratulations, Mr. Seabury. Thank you very much. That Mary Teisel is not here today, but she's watching us on TV, so I want to wish her and Lee Teisel a happy wedding anniversary. Thursday's on January the 28th. There are some other events I just want to point out to you. One that's not listed on here, but it takes place this Saturday morning. New Hope Baptist Church is having their annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration at the Holiday Inn. It starts at 10 a.m. I'd like to see a nice turnout from the council there. And then there's the community-wide celebration that takes place on January 14th at 6 p.m. in honor of Dr. King and all the wonderful things he's done for our country. In addition to that, there are other number of events that you see here. The City Hall will be closed on the 19th, which is Dr. King's birthday. We also have our annual installation dinner for the Germantown Volunteer Fire Department. The Mayor's Ball is on January 31st. There are still tickets available for those folks that like to come. All the funding that we generate from there is donated to various nonprofit charities. This year's beneficiary is Nearby Children's First, along with the Nearby Museum and Historical Society. This is by no means a listing of all the events that are going on in the city, but if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact one in my office, and she'll be happy to give you more information. With that, Mr. President, the minutes, please.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, as all members have copies, and copies are on file in the city clerk's office.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Perkins. Are there any corrections or deletions or additions to the minutes as presented? Then I'll try to minds on acceptance of the minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have it, motion carries, and the minutes are adopted. Mr. President, the majority leader of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Your Honor. Consent calendar, January 6, 2009. Number 2, received a communication, accept a donation of $50 from Bernard and Mary Ann Mitchell Holland to the Danbury Police Department and send an appropriate letter of thanks. Number 3, received a communication to accept a donation of the standpipe and sprinkler system installed in the Fire Department training facility on Plum Trees Road by the Fire Stop Incorporated Bethel, and send the appropriate letters of thanks. Number 4, received a communication of an accepted donation from the Visiting Angels, the Gardens, the Laurel Ridge, totaling $75 to the Department of Elderly Services, transferred into line item 5002.6000, donations, and send appropriate letters of thanks. And finally, number 8, received a communication to approve the sidewalk easement, Old Ridgeberry Road and Larson Road, and accept the proposed conveyance subject to required planning approval.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Would you please announce Mr. Cavo?
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to make a motion that we and adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Second. Motion made and seconded by Mr. Negasheth. Is there any discussion related to the consent calendar as presented? Seeing none, then I'll try your minds. All those in favor of accepting the consent calendar, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, item 1, please.
Communication, request for ad hoc lease of Old Ridgeberry Road.
Pleasure of council. Councilman McMahon.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to refer this to an ad hoc committee with the Director of Finance, the Director of Economic Development, a representative of the Mayor's Office, Corporation Council, and the Director of Planning.
The ad hoc committee shall consist of the following: Councilman Seabury, Councilman Negasheth, and Councilman Chinese. Items 2 through 4 were consent. And Madam Clerk, item 5, please.
Communication donation to the Department of Health, Housing, and Welfare. Dear Mayor, Boughton, Common Council, as you know, the City of Danbury was recently selected as one of the 7 communities in the U.S. to receive recognition from the CDC TIIDE partners as a model of how emergency medical services can work with other safety and public health agencies in times of disaster. As part of the recognition, a meeting is being scheduled in Jacksonville, Florida on Sunday, January 25, 2009. The meeting will include participation in a panel discussion with other selected communities to discuss leveraging funds, outline general concepts, and identify unique ideas that other communities around the nation might use so that they can become a model community in the future. Knowing that there may not be travel funds available for this, the CDC has provided a partner that will pay all the travel expenses related to this meeting. The National Disaster Life Support Program of the American Medical Association is sponsoring the entire trip so that there is no cost to the City of Danbury. All travel arrangements will be made through the American AMA's travel agent, so nothing else is needed except for approval of the AMA's donation that has been estimated at approximately $2,000. This is a great recognition for the City of Danbury, and I look forward to your continued support. Sincerely, Scott Leroy, Director of Health, Housing, and Welfare.
What's your pleasure, Council? Councilman Negasheth.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to receive this communication and accept this generous donation and send an appropriate letter.
Motion made and seconded by Councilwoman McMahon. Is there any discussion about the donation? Seeing none, then I'll try your minds. All those in favor of acceptance of the donation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Scott, congratulations, by the way, on earning the award from the Health Department. We appreciate all the good work that you do. Good job. Madam Clerk, item 6, please.
Communication, request for ad hoc from the Fire Department.
What's your pleasure, Councilman Clerk?
I would like to refer this to an ad hoc committee consisting of the Fire Chief, Director of Finance, and Corporation Council.
The ad hoc committee shall consist of the following: Councilman Trombetta, Councilwoman McMahon, and Councilman Visconti. Madam Clerk, item 7, please.
Communication, Kentwood Lake Shoreline Management Plan.
Pleasure, Council. Councilman Trombetta.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to receive the communication and appoint an ad hoc committee consisting of the Corporation Council, Director of Planning, and also a representative of the Mayor's Office.
Ad hoc committee shall consist of the following: Councilman Cavo, Councilman Calandrino, and Councilman Natale. Item 8 was on consent. Madam Clerk, item 9, please.
Communication, letter of resignation, Councilman Johnson. Dear Joe, I am writing today to officially tender my resignation as 2nd Ward Common Councilman effective Friday, December 19, 2008. With my promotion to the Fire Marshal, I feel it would be better to vacate my position. I will say that the last 3 years have been a valuable learning experience. In that time, I believe that we, as a council, and with the leadership of the administration, we really did truly accomplish a lot. the end result making Danbury a great place to live and raise a family. I cannot say enough wonderful things about everyone on the council. From my first meeting through the last 3 years, it was a pleasure to work with everyone. I will miss the camaraderie that I feel is felt by all. Once again, thank you all. If you ever need anything, my office door is always open. Sincerely, James Johnson.
What's your pleasure, Council? Councilman Cavo?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's with regret that I will make the motion to accept Councilman Johnson's resignation letter from the council. I do understand why he has
Motion made and seconded by Councilman Trombetta. Does anybody have any views to met out to Councilman Johnson tonight? We did make him stick around here this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, I just want to say to JJ, thank you very much for your time. It's been our pleasure to have you with us as well. And your knowledge and your righting of the ship ability was just really great to have. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. And look forward to continue working with you.
Mr. Seabaird.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo those sentiments. JJ, it's been a pleasure having you here, but I'm really leaning towards voting against this motion, so you have to stay. Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Visconti or Mr. Trombetta? Mr. Visconti.
Thank you. I too would like to express my thanks to Jim as a co-councilman in the 2nd Ward. We just got along tremendously. I think we accomplished a lot in the 2nd Ward, and you'll truly be missed. Thank you.
And Mr. Visconti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to echo the comments of my colleagues. And it was my pleasure to watch Jimmy come up through the department in the leadership process. And he always showed tremendous leadership ability. I know that he will serve well as his appointment to our city fire marshal. And I wish him all the luck in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other comments about Mr. Johnson? Seeing none, then, Jim, I also want to congratulate you and thank you for your years of service here in the city. And, you know, serving in the council in a volunteer capacity is not always an easy job, and it certainly is not a job that everybody can step up to. So the point that you did, and you donated your time many nights and many evenings and on weekends to the betterment of the city, I want to thank you for doing that, and you certainly went above and beyond the call of many city volunteers. So thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations also on your appointment, and I know that you're doing a fine job as the city's fire marshal. So congratulations. We're gratefully and regretfully accepting your letter of resignation, and I'll have a vote at this time. All those in favor of the acceptance of the letter, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? And the motion passes. Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, item 10, please.
Communication, request for an ad hoc from the Volunteer Center.
What's your pleasure, Council? Councilwoman Diggs?
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to make a referral to an ad hoc committee consisting of the Finance Director, Economic Development Director, and a representative from the Volunteer Center.
The ad hoc committee shall consist of the following: Councilman Knapp, Councilman Curran, and Councilman Visconti. Madam Clerk, item 11, please.
Communication, request for funds from the Danbury Youth Baseball.
What's your pleasure, Council? Councilwoman Stanley?
Thank you, Your Honor. Without any objection, I would like to make a motion to receive the communication and refer this request of $3,000 to the Mayor's office to be included in the 2009-2010 budget.
Thank you for putting me on the hot seat. I love coming here down at that end of the dais. Any objection to that motion? We'll consider it in our deliberations for the 09-010 budget. Seeing none, then that is so ordered. Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, item 12, please.
Report, 2008 Charter Revision Draft Report.
It's a pleasure, Council. Councilman Riley?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to send item number 12 to a public hearing, followed by a committee of the whole.
Motion made, Mr. Rotella.
Your Honor, I'll refer this to an ad hoc.
Mr. Rotella, the committee of the whole will serve as the ad hoc. Under 2-25 of the Code of Ordinances, the mayor determines the and I urge the chair to return to the size and scope of the committee. So at the conclusion of the public hearing, there will be a committee of the whole, and then the discussions will be held regarding the recommendations. Any other objections about the public hearing? Seeing none, then it is so ordered. Mr. President.
Your Honor, at this time, for the benefit of the department heads and staff that are here, I'd like to ask the council if they would allow us to move item number 14, which is the department reports, ahead of item number 13, the executive session portion of our meeting tonight.
Motion been made to move item 14 ahead of that, seconded by Mr. Sadi. Any discussion about moving department reports ahead? Seeing none, I'll try and minds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposition. Mr. President, department reports.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to waive the reading of the department reports as all members have copies. The copies are on file in the city clerk's office.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion on the department reports? Once the council is done with the discussion, I'm going to release the department heads to head home, with the exception of the ones that will be touched by the executive session, if that's okay with the council. So we're going to start with Mr. Seabury, and then I'll work my way down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick comment to the fire department chief. Jeff, I got to tell you, and I said this to you privately, when we had that episode at Danbury High School where one of our students set off the sprinkler system, your guys were amazing. They came in and literally saved thousands and thousands of dollars by covering the computers when the sprinkler systems coming through the ceiling. They were in there before anything got damaged. And I got to slap you guys on back for that. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Go, Chief. No, we don't need you to comment on all the enough already. Thanks, Chief. Mr. Curran, and then Mr. Curran.
I'm just going to direct this to Scott Leroy and his department. I just want to stress once again what we already knew or heard this evening, that I think it's quite an honor that we're one of 7 cities in the United States to be honored to be a part of this project, and you and your department deserve a lot of credit for this. Thank you.
And both chiefs, thank you. Chief Baker and Chief Farrell, thank you. No more, Jeff. Mr. Trombetta.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just, I'm not going to be popular with high school kids, but I just want to commend the fire chief and fire department for the recent, I guess it's an evacuation of the club that was downtown Danbury due to overcrowding. I grew up in Stamford, Greenwich area in 1974, the Gulliver's Fire, where 24 and 2 happened to be friends of mine perished in a fire due to overcrowding and locked doors. And this is such an important issue, and I just commend it. It's a tough thing to do, but again, and the police department, I commend the fire and police department for their actions. Thank you.
Good work, Chief. Any other accolades for Chief Harold? We are going to be writing the budget soon. Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Reed?
Mr. Mayor, I know there's a deep concern nowadays with the financial condition around the country, and many of my constituents have asked how Danbury is doing. And I wonder if, not with great detail, but a little bit of an overview of where the city of Danbury is as far as financially. Hopefully we're not in the state that some of the other bigger cities in the state are. Just to kind of give a little overview of that.
Sure. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Fortunately, in the budget process, we were pretty tight on the numbers, as you all know. We all struggled with that last year, and the budget that the mayor presented, and we were pretty conservative on our revenue estimates, and that proved out to be a very smart move. We knew it was going to be a tough year. And having said that, you know, compared to our budget, we're not doing too bad. Many communities didn't prepare like we did as far as the possible struggles that may be encountered in this budget year. But we're only halfway through the year. So, you know, and you know, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that so far we're doing okay.
We, and Mr. Reed, just so you're aware, Mr. St. Hilaire and I meet weekly and review the financial condition of the city. while we're okay now, the trend is down on revenues, and it continues to arc downward, so we're always concerned, and we're always looking to save it down.
If I could just follow up for a moment, I don't know whether we do actuarial studies on the retirement fund and our contribution and things of that nature, but I know that many residents have had their 401s turned into 101s. And I just wonder how we're doing in that area.
Well, it was a tough year for everyone.
Nowhere to hide in that one. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
I can tell you that we did better than the Dow, and we're waiting for the final numbers for 12/31. I was on the phone with our fund advisor today, and we're waiting for fund information.
So part of that budgeting.
But long story short, it was just a miserable year.
I don't know. Oh, well, I'm going to say.
I mean, from an actuarial standpoint, in some of the runs we've done, we're going to have to increase our contribution next year. But we didn't. It's not. I wouldn't. It's always more. You never want to have to put more money in, but is a huge burden? No. It's more money that we're going to have to put in, and it was. We did finish up on the year. I think Mr. Sandler, correct me if I'm wrong in saying this.
Talking about the audit, yes.
I know I'm talking about the pension funds as well. I mean, when I talked to our fund advisor, she'd indicated that we took a hit. There was nowhere to hide for anybody. We still outperformed and finished in the positive, but it could have been a much better year. Let's put it that way. If September didn't roll around, it was just a bad month for all of us. But in terms of our future liabilities, we're covered. There have been some big cities in Connecticut that are struggling. Fairfield lost about $40 million in the Madoff scandal. Fortunately, we only had a very small amount of exposure there that we think will be roughly in the tune of about $300,000 or $400,000 that will be reimbursed for in general. So, we've just been lucky, but it's a struggle out there. You know that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? And at future meetings, feel free to ask Mr. Sandler those kinds of questions, by the way, regarding where we stand financially. You do have your statements and conditions as well, and you'll see the negative track on the revenues, but it is something we'll have to deal with towards the end of the budget cycle. Any other questions, Mr. Trombetta?
Yeah, I just wanted to volunteer for the trip with Scott Leroy, if you need anyone.
You were going to say that. Anybody else want to go to Jacksonville? Okay. Seeing that there's no other discussion on department reports, motion's been made and seconded for acceptance. All in favor of accepting the reports, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have a motion carries unanimously. At this time, we're going to entertain a motion to move into executive session made by Mr. Natale. Yeah, before, realizing that a lot of folks that are here tonight will probably be leaving, I'm going to appoint the Budget Committee. The new budget workshop is moved to January 21st. And I'll send out an email to both Mr. Cavo and Mr. Sadi to distribute that amongst the membership. If you can go to that meeting, particularly if whether you're on the committee or not, for the education budget, it would be a help. And also to be able to understand a little bit about the challenges they're facing, but also to get an early start on that, since that compromises about 65% of our budget. So the Budget Education Committee for the 2009-2010 budget shall be, as chair, Councilwoman Stanley, Councilman Riley gets another go around there, Councilwoman Diggs, Councilman Calandrino, and Councilman Visconti because he asked for it. He really didn't ask for it, but he's got to do it.
Still waiting for my kindergarten.
So, if all you folks can make an effort to be there, but even if you're not on the committee, as you know, we all touch the budget. If you can just pop in, it would be helpful in terms of the process. So, I wanted to get that out before we go into executive session. At this time, I entertain a motion to move the executive session. Made by Mr. Natale, seconded by Mr. Cavo. All in favor of the executive session, signify by saying aye. Aye. The purpose is to discuss litigation expenditures. At this time, I ask the residents to, unfortunately, you have to clear the room. That'll be the only business transacted by the appropriation for. You know which one Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now that we're back in regular session, I'd like to make a motion to authorize funding as discussed in executive session in the amounts that were discussed in executive session for litigation and other related matters that were discussed.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Rotella. Any discussion? Seeing none, then I appreciate the council's indulgence during that executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? The motion passes 19-0 unanimously. I'll extend all committees at this time. Reminder, Monday night is a public hearing followed by committee of the whole, and the January 21st meeting of the budget for the education committee. So if you can get that going, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn at this time. Made by Mr. Sadi, seconded by Mr. Visconti. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Yeah, there's one down. You know that? First half of the meeting. I got it. Oh, you were? I saw you did it, but I thought you could. I got everything, and I recorded it. Plus, share with audio. Sorry, no video, just audio.